Assalamualaikum and a very good morning or evening, Dr. Umi. So, my name is Afifah Binti Ahmad Nasir and my metric number is 217356, and today my group from group 3 would like to present about the phosphorus cycle. Okay, so this is my teammate. We are from group 3 and it's me, Afifah, and then Husna, Farah, Yahya, Izzati, and lastly is Syazwani.
What is phosphorus? The phosphorus cycle is a vital biogeochemical cycle that describes how phosphorus moves through living and non-living parts of the earth. Unlike other cycles such as carbon or nitrogen, phosphorus is unique because it is not found in the atmosphere. This slow process involves the movement of phosphorus through rocks, soil, water, and living organisms. So, how does phosphorus reach the ocean? Its main source is land. It begins in continental rocks and is released through weathering, when rain and wind break down rocks. From there, it travels through rivers and eventually enters the sea. Its importance can be seen in 4 key areas. First, in biological foundation, phosphorus is essential for life. It forms DNA and RNA, which carry genetic information, and is a key component of cell membranes. It also enables the production of ATP, the molecule that provides energy for all cellular processes. Second, phosphorus supports organism growth. Plant and microorganisms absorb in from the soil, while animals obtain it through food and water. This nutrient is vital for the health and development of all living organisms, including microbes in the soil. Third, phosphorus is stored in rocks and released through weathering and rainfall. From there, it enters soil and water system, making it available to living organisms. The fourth, in agriculture, phosphorus is used in fertilizers to improve crop productivity. However, careful management is crucial because excessive phosphorus can lead to harmful algae blooms which disrupt ecosystem. In short, phosphorus is the backbone and energy source of life, providing structure through DNA and membranes and power through ATP.
Very good day everyone. Before I start, let me introduce myself first. My name is Ahmad bin Tamran, and today I will explain about the main sources of phosphorus in the ocean. So, there are 2 types of sources. First is natural sources and second is human sources. So, natural sources, it enters the ocean through very slow geological process. Unlike the nitrogen, phosphorus does not have a major gaseous phase. So, it mostly stays in rocks and water. First, let's look at the natural sources of phosphorus. One major natural source is a weathering of rocks on land. So when rocks containing phosphate minerals, it breaks down due to rain and erosion. So phosphorus is released into the soils and rivers. So these rivers eventually transport phosphorus into the ocean. Another important natural source is the atmospheric deposition. So dust particles from land, volcanic eruptions, and even sea spray can carry phosphorus through the atmosphere and deposit it into the ocean through rainfall or dry. It's a primary highway for phosphorus. So rivers carry into 2 ways. So first is dissolve. So for dissolve, it is ready for immediate use by the aquatic plants. And the second one is particulate. So phosphorus is attached to silt and clay. So when rivers reach into the salty ocean, much of this phosphorus dissolves from the dirt and becomes available to marine life. Let's move to the human-related sources. Apart from natural sources, human activities also contribute phosphorus to the ocean. So these include agricultural runoff. So agriculture runoff has fertilizers that is rich in phosphorus. So it will be washed into the rivers and eventually it will reach to the ocean. So next is sewage and wastewater discharge. So these two contain phosphorus rich from the detergents or organic waste. So industrial activities can also release a lot of phosphorus into the coastal waters. So this excess phosphorus from these two can lead to a bigger problem, which is eutrophication, which causes algal bloom and reduces oxygen levels in the marine ecosystem. So let's move on to the next person. Thank you.
Okay, so there's a way how to reduce phosphorus in water. So actually, phosphorus is very important for plants, for animals in water. But when it too much, it will cause a serious environmental problem such as eutrophication. So firstly, how to reduce phosphorus into the water is by using a natural source, which is phosphorus will goes into the water by rocks. So as you guys know, at pond, at wetland, we have rocks, right? So the phosphate have on the rocks on the land. So when the rainfall occur, so the water will goes onto the rocks, right? So it will flows over the land surface, and the rain will cause the erosion to the rocks. So it will breaking down the phosphates on the rocks, and the phosphorus will release and carry away by surface runoff. So that is how phosphate on the rocks goings to the water. So it will reduce lah, because it's carried away by surface runoff. Okay, so the second way how to reduce amount of the phosphorus in the water is construct a wetland with aquatic plant. So nowadays, people will build a constructed wetland, and then it will plant the aquatic plant into the water. So when they plant the aquatic plant into the water will pass slowly through the roots of these plants, and then the roots aquatic plant will make three action, which is uptake, rhizofiltration, and also phytostabilization to reduce the amount of the phosphorus in the water. So what is uptake process? Uptake process is when the plant's roots will dissolve phosphorus from water and soil, and it will becomes part of the tissue, plant tissue, aquatic plant tissue, such as like leaf, stem, root. So it will reduce the amount of the phosphorus in the water because it ready to uptake from plant roots. And then the second action from root is rhizofiltration. Rhizo is roots, as you guys know. So rhizofiltration is one of the process and act like filter to remove phosphorus and also other pollutants from the water that flow past them. And then the lastly action from roots is phytostabilization. So what is phyto? Phyto is plants, and stabil is make stable. And then when it's together, phytostabilization is one of the process when the plants will hold the phosphorus in the soil and around their roots, so it will does not move lah to other downstream. So it will reduce the phosphorus in the water, such as like low area like pond, and then like river, like that. Okay, so the third way to reduce phosphorus in the water is when the plant grows a lot in the water and it will become hard biomass. Because when more plant grow in the water, they will take a phosphorus from water and keep inside their roots, stem, and also in their leaf. So this means the phosphorus is no longer in the water but stored inside the plants. And this happen because the water contain a lot of phosphorus, which is a nutrient to plant to grow and become bigger. So it will take and put inside their roots, stem, and leaf, as I said just now. And also when they take a lot of phosphorus, it will make a plants can survive even if the water contain other pollutants such as heavy metal. So this allow the plants to continue growing and cleaning the water. So high biomass production is very give a lot of benefit. So firstly, it will make the plants grow a lot, and then second, more phosphate trapped inside the plants, and lastly, the water become clean. So this is a benefit lah when plants more growth in the water. Okay, so the fourth step, how to reduce the phosphorus in the plant is they make a phosphorus recovery as biofertilizer. So before this, I said that the plants will absorb the phosphorus right from the water and keep inside their leaf, roots and stem. So we need to harvest it, and we take the plants and cut, so the phosphorus goes with them. So when we not harvest, the phosphorus will keep in the water. So we need to harvest it. So what is the important to harvest it? Because if the plants are left to die in the water, as I said just now, the phosphorus will go back into the water, and it will make a serious environmental problem, which is eutrophication. So it will cause pollution again, and we need to remove it, and they can use as biofertilizer for farming. So this step will, firstly, we need to take phosphorus out of the water. So we need to stop pollution from coming back and turn waste into something useful. So the benefit of the harvested plant is contain high phosphorus, and it can be processed into biofertilizer, and can be used again for agriculture. So this is important. After we plant by constructed wetland, we need to harvest it. So when we not harvest, it will become pollution again. So this is step to reduce phosphorus in the water as a biofertilizer. Okay, for the conclusion is, I would like to say that after passing 4 ways to reduce the phosphorus, finally phosphorus concentration in the water is more greatly reduced, and the water living system much clean, and the risk of eutrophication is minimized at the downstream, at the river, and then we can use the water as our daily part. We want to drink, we want to wash something. So this is a way we want to reduce the phosphorus in the water, to make sure the plants grow greater, bigger, and the animals in the water is not die if phosphorus increase in the water. So this is a way, a natural way, a biological uptake way. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Let's take a look about how phosphorus transferred through the marine food web. Phosphorus in the ocean mainly exists in the form of phosphate ions that are dissolved in seawater. Primary producers such as phytoplankton and seaweed absorb phosphate directly from the water for their growth and their metabolism. Phosphorus is very essential for their cellular functions, including formation of DNA, RNA, ATP, and also cell membranes. Once phosphorus is incorporated into primary producers, it is transferred to the marine food web via feeding. Primary consumers such as zooplankton and small invertebrates consume phytoplankton and seaweed. Phosphorus then moves to secondary and higher level consumers, including fish, crustaceans, and top predators like sharks. At each trophic level, phosphorus becomes part of their organism body tissues. However, not all phosphorus remains stored in living organisms. Through normal biological process, marine animals release phosphorus back into the environment as fecal matter and metabolic waste. In addition, when the organism die, their bodies become dead organic matter, which contains phosphorus. Lastly, fecal matter and dead organism are broken down by bacteria and decomposer. During the decomposition process, organic phosphorus is converted back into inorganic phosphate. Some of this phosphate is recycled in surface waters, where it can be reused by phytoplankton and also by the seaweed. However, a portion will be sink to the ocean floor and becomes deposited in marine sediment, whereas phosphorus can be stored for a long term.
Following the previous explanation, This slide focuses on phosphorus in surface waters. I will now explain the role of phosphorus at the cellular level, especially in phytoplankton. This image shows why phosphorus is very important for marine life, especially phytoplankton. Phytoplankton use phosphorus at the cellular level. Phosphorus is a key component of DNA, which is needed for cell growth and reproduction. It is also part of ATP, which is the main energy molecule cells. ATP provides energy for important processes like photosynthesis and metabolisms. Because of this, phosphorus helps phytoplankton grow, divide, and function properly. Since phytoplankton form the base of the marine food web, the availability of phosphorus directly affects the productivity in the entire ocean ecosystem. This slide shows how phosphorus first enters the marine environment, the main source of riverine input. When rocks on land weather and break down, they release phosphorus. Rainwater carries this phosphorus into rivers and eventually into the ocean. This is the largest natural source of phosphorus in the sea. Another source is atmospheric deposition. Phosphorus rich dust from dry regions and can be carried by wind and deposit directly into the ocean surface. Together, these processes supply phosphorus to marine waters and start its journey in the ocean. This slide shows how phosphorus first enters the marine environment, the main source of riverine input. When rocks on land weather and break down, they release phosphorus. Rainwater carries this phosphorus into rivers and eventually into the ocean. This is the largest natural source of phosphorus in the sea. Another source is atmospheric deposition. Phosphorus rich dust from dry regions and can be carried by wind and deposit directly into the ocean surface. Together, these processes supply phosphorus to marine waters and start its journey in the ocean. Once phosphorus is stored inside the phytoplankton, it begins to move through the marine food web. Zooplankton feed on phytoplankton, then small fish eat the zooplankton, and larger predators eat the small fish. At each level of the food chain, phosphorus is transferred from one organism to another. This transfer supports growth, energy flow, and overall productivity in marine ecosystem. Not all phosphorus stays in the surface waters. When phytoplankton and another organisms die, or when zooplankton produce fecal pellets, this material sink towards the sea floor. Phosphorus attached to this sinking particles is transported downward in a process called sedimentation. Sedimentation is very important because it acts as a long-term storage sink for phosphorus in the ocean. In the deep ocean, organic matter continues to break down. Microorganisms decompose this material in a process called remineralization, releasing phosphorus back into the water as dissolved phosphate. However, not all phosphorus is recycled. Some of it becomes buried in marine sediments and can remain there for very geological periods. The balance between recycling and burial helps control how much phosphorus is available for marine life and influences ocean productivity.
Alright, we move on to the how do human impacts on phosphorus cycle. So the phosphorus cycle begins with the weathering of rocks, which releases the phosphorus into the soil from the rain. So the plants absorb this phosphorus and pass it through the food chains to animals, where it supports the essential processes such as the photosynthesis and the DNA formation. Therefore, the human activities, especially the agriculture and industrial practices, have significantly altered this natural cycle by increasing the phosphorus movement and concentration in ecosystem. Alright, so then the phosphorus is absorbed by the plants and transferred to the animals through the consumption. So when the plants and animals die, so decomposition returns the phosphorus to the soil. So the human mining of phosphorus-rich rocks for fertilizer accelerates the natural cycle, and fertilizer use increases agricultural productivity, but also leads to excess phosphorus in the environment. So that could lead to the pollution. Furthermore, the rainfall washes the phosphorus from the fertilizers into rivers and lakes. So this leads to the eutrophication. This causes algal blooms that reduce oxygen levels in the water, so harming the aquatic organisms, and some blooms can produce toxins that negatively affect human health and drinking water quality. Alright, shall we move on to the problems and the management? So the excess of the phosphorus input causes the eutrophication that leads to the algal blooms that reduce the dissolved oxygens, resulting in the fish kills, loss of the biodiversity, economic losses to the fisheries and tourism, and risk to the human health. And for the management, how do we manage them? So the wastewater treatment removes the excess phosphorus before it enters the water bodies. So the water quality monitoring detects the problems early. Therefore, controlled fertilizer use reduces runoff from farms. And then, industrial regulations limit phosphorus pollution. And the public education encourages responsible behavior. So together, these actions reduce the eutrophication and protect the aquatic ecosystems.
In conclusion, the phosphorus cycle is continuous but slow process that eventually returns phosphorus to its main reservoir rocks. Unlike other cycles that end in the atmosphere, this cycle completes through sedimentation and rock formation over millions of years. In ocean, phosphorus accumulates in marine sediments after organisms die and decompose. However, human activities such as using phosphorus-rich fertilizers can disrupt this balance and cause ecological problems like excessive algae growth. Remember, the phosphorus cycle is long. Phosphorus starts in rocks, moves through soil, water and living organism, and finally returns to rocks.
Dapatkah ku membalunya, menjadikan bintang di sudah